What is up, y'all? We are on episode 47 of Your House, Our Rules, the regular podcast. If you haven't checked out and you are a sports fan, definitely check out the new sports podcast that we just released. I think that it's going really well. So everyone can do it. We have Jack down in Tennessee doing his thing, but so we can all stay connected. It's always on Discord. We're always able to meet up, so that's probably going to be something that you see on a weekly basis, at least until baseball season starts, because fuck baseball. I think we all agree with that.
Not everybody feels that way that are watching.
No, not everyone does feel that way that's watching, but I'll say it. I've said it before on the podcast. Fuck baseball. But anyway.
I wouldn't feel that way if the Reds were relevant.
Yeah, no.
Bandwagon fan.
Exactly. There are a lot of people hopping on that Bengals bandwagon, though, nationally. But you know what? It is what it is. We're going to continue on with this episode. We've got fucking Michael Wallet, as you know, been on the past couple podcasts. Jeff, who's been on here before, a.k.a. Fat Keith. And I'm Ugly Jeff.
Oh, my God. Hold on a second. That's Fat Keith?
That's Fat Keith.
You're Fat Keith?
Yes. Yeah. Did you see that episode that we did where I just was like tearing you apart, fucking calling you Fat Keith and shit? No.
Dude, what? We've been hanging out this whole time, and I didn't know you were Fat Keith?
That's definitely Fat Keith.
Shit.
People tell us all the time, they're like, you guys look a lot alike. And I was like, yeah, we are. And we're also those loud, like probably the most loudmouth people outside of our family. That's like maybe outside of like Mary and Dwayne, our uncle and his mother. But yeah, there's a resemblance that we got. But
the facial feature, yes. I mean, but you've got a full grown beard. I mean, you've got a beard and shit too. But like,
I just got lighter hair in mine.
Yes, exactly. I was gonna say the hair color, the difference in the hair color.
It's more of the facial features.
Exactly.
I will say that we all look pretty similar in our family, but me and Jeff look a little bit more. He's just fucking got fat now because at Bonnaroo they all were calling me fucking Ugly Jeff. So I was like, if I'm Ugly Jeff, he moved up here and got fat, so he's Fat Keith.
Man, COVID did a number when they said stay at home and don't go anywhere. I literally did that for like 6 months.
One ugly family.
Sometimes we had to. A lot of people had to. I didn't necessarily do that, but you know what?
Here we go.
It is what it is. We're on episode 47 of Your House, Our Rules, kicking it off a little lightheartedly, but I think that we got an episode that is not so much. You know, a lot of things have happened with our boy Kanye recently, coming out, speaking out against like Zionist Jews and that whole thing. And, you know, when you look into it a little bit deeper, he has a little bit more of a point than people are really giving him credit for.
Aside from the Hitler stuff.
That's what I was about to say. Aside from like the thing that he really likes Hitler and was basically saying that he loved Nazis in his InfoWars interview or whatever. Yeah, that's a little bit over the top, but what we got today is something that we're talking about. We all watched a documentary. It was called How Israel Stole Nuclear Weapons from America, and it was by, was it Ryan Wilson?
Ryan Dawson. It's called NUMEC, How Israel Stole the Bomb.
Atomic bomb, yeah.
Yeah. You can find it on Rumble, or you can
That's
go to his actual
it.
website, which is ancreport.com, which stands for anti-neocons.
You can find it a couple places, but it will get taken down.
Watch it now before it gets deleted.
Yeah, and it'll pop back down, pop back up, but eventually it will get taken down. And basically, the documentary just kind of goes through this, narrative that back in the 1940s, when World War II was happening. And there was all that. We had the Manhattan Project where we were designing nuclear bombs. We bombed Japan at the end of the war and became like, the superpower empire type country that we are. And at the time, there was a lot of, stuff going on where there was a lot of arms getting dealt, a lot of like drugs, and there were some sketchy situations going on. But when we bombed Japan, we essentially became the superpower of the world. We had the Iron Curtain. I think Churchill even said, like, the United States is the supreme power. Everyone was trying to get in on the technology that we had. And when that happened, some things happened with the Zionist Jews coming over who are trying to protect their homeland.
Let me step in real quick.
Okay.
What essentially happened is when Jews were being persecuted all across Europe and Asia, they had to basically find a new place to go because they were, felt that their lives were threatened, that, their existence would be gone. So they ended up moving to Palestine, and there was some things that went on with like the British government and like the Palestinian people, where they agreed to allow them to come there, and like they said it would be peaceful and whatnot. And then once these Zionists got enough people there, they started, basically taking power over themselves and taking land for themselves.
Not being peaceful.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not being peaceful. And then, like, after that happened, the Mossad and the CIA were running guns and stuff, like the guns that were left over from after the war. Go ahead.
Let me just interject real quick. Can you kind of explain what the Mossad is for people who don't know what we're talking about?
The Mossad is is Israel's CIA. It's their, 3-letter private, unregulated government,
governing body.
Yeah,
basically.
That has the freedom where they don't get, the people don't get to know what they do or what's going on. So they have basically the freedom to mingle in things that, like, if people knew what was going on, there would be people
they wouldn't
in the
agree
streets.
with it.
Yeah,
yes.
there would be people in the streets. And so they ended up stealing yellow cake uranium from Pennsylvania and taking it to Israel, and they also stole the plans to develop the nuclear weapons from the U.S., and now they have a shit ton of them, which they still, to this day, claim they don't have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And a Mossad spy actually came out. He went and photographed the nuclear warheads and released the pictures online, and basically proving that yes, they did have them.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even
is that recent?
Day, you can even to this day look up, like, type into Google, does Israel have nuclear weapons?
I did that
because technically the United Nations has the 5 nations, which are like China, Russia, America, I think the United Kingdom, and France, right? Which are able to have nuclear weapons. And if you type it into Google, it'll say Israel, even on Google, it says Israel technically does not have nuclear clearance to do that, but it is kind of known
not
that
to say that they don't have the plans.
So,
yes.
but let's slow it down for 1 second and just rewind. Let people know a little bit. This is a very it's a thick topic. It's something that if you really want to know about, you need to like buckle down and watch some of these things that we are talking about. The documentary would be a good start. Jeff has a couple other ones that he might want to introduce. So
yeah, for sure. There's a podcast by a guy named Daryl Cooper. It's called the Martyr Made podcast. It's a fantastic history podcast. He goes over a bunch of things, but like the first 6 or 7 episodes of the podcast, they're like several hours long. So,
it's a lot.
You got to commit to it. But the first 7 episodes are called Fear and Loathing in New Israel. And he literally breaks down everything about like them being persecuted and like from both sides, and them moving to Israel and all the treaties and lies that were told in order to like allow them to be there, and like everything all the way up through, through the 60s, 70s, like all the way up. And it's a fantastic podcast, especially if you're into history and would like to know really what's like the secret hand behind a lot of U.S. politics and all the industries that we have.
The stuff you might be interested in that you don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some very good information.
Yes.
There's a lot going on, and I mean, technically you can't prove these things as fact, but if you watch the documentaries and you watch these podcasts and stuff like that, you'll get a little bit more understanding of what's going on. And
he shows the research. He shows court documents, all kinds of stuff.
So there is some factual.
Oh yeah, so much.
There's a lot of factual evidence that they present to you. It's just it kind of comes down to a point where they want to say that it's not true, but a lot of it is just covered up. So,
yes, but that doesn't mean it's not true.
Exactly. But it all comes down to the thing where we're talking about like the 1940s with these nuclear arms or whatever.
Right.
There were these Israeli people that were, helping trade weapons and other things back in the day. They eventually realized that, in order to gain like their homeland or whatever, get their homeland back, which we've been fighting over for thousands of years. I mean, when it comes to the monotheistic religions, that like Palestinian area, they've been fighting over it for years and years and years, but they decided to...
If they were ever there to begin with in the first place, like, I don't believe, like, those, you know, in the Bible, it talks about the Philistines were the people who were there. Philistines, Palestinians, those are the people that were there 3,000 years ago. It wasn't the Jews.
Right.
Like, they claim that's their homeland, but, like, you know, if you haven't been there for 3,000 years, if you could even prove that you were there, like, how is that your land now?
Yeah,
you know,
you did what you had to do in order to take over.
Well, the Jewish people were there 3,000 years ago. I mean, 2,000 years ago when we
not
talk
the
about
prominent
like,
though.
when we talk
they
about
weren't
like
that prominent.
Well, when we talk about like Christianity, Christ, he was born in Nazareth, that modern day area, and you know we still have all this fighting going on in Jerusalem, which is in that area.
Is that real?
It all came into that thing, but no, I mean you can believe what you want to about Jesus Christ, whether he's the Messiah, or you get into all that philosophical,
or
spiritual
whether
shit.
he was even
but
real.
at the end of the day, the Jewish people were living there, and beyond that, we have biblical texts that can prove that they were there for even thousands of years before that.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean.
I mean, even so, Christianity became kind of a thing with Christ, even though it wasn't really owned until Constantine in like 300 AD in the Roman Empire and stuff like that. And then Islam just came after that. So when we're talking about monotheistic religions, that would have been...
Well, I think what he's referring to is the fact that maybe they weren't the prominent individuals or group of people that were in that area.
That specific area was you know, the Moors, and then it was the Egyptians, and then it was the Romans, and then it was, you know, like, it was literally... That area has been fought over forever, and it wasn't...
That was the exact point that I was trying to make.
Yeah, no doubt, but I'm just saying,
all of them think that it's their homeland.
I don't know that they ever actually were the power there in that place. Like, they were supposedly, according to the biblical story, they were slaves there that had to be freed from there. So, like, they weren't even in power there.
The point that I was trying to make was that ever since, you know, like... 2,000 years ago when Christianity started becoming a thing, we had Judaism there, and then Islam came, but throughout the entire Middle Ages, we were fighting over, or all the monotheistic religions were fighting over that area because it was the whole...
Who controlled what, basically, yes.
Yeah, and the point about that is, that I was trying to make, is that these religions have been fighting over that area forever, and when, you know, you are from the Jewish descent, and now we're in a modern society and they still want to take that land or whatever, they started using the nuclear weapons that we designed in the Manhattan Project and stuff like that to help get that.
Yeah, to claim that.
Yeah, to have power in case anybody decided that they were going to try to take that back from them. Basically, they had their hand, you know, an upper hand, along with being super allies with the United States. You know, they can always call daddy up to help them, you know, basically. But by the way, I wanted to say this when we were talking about the guy that took the picture of the warheads that was a Mossad spy. His name's Mordecai Vanunu. I don't know how to spell it, but if you type that in, you'll see that he went to prison for a long time for it. You know, they obviously weren't very happy of him doing that, you know, being a turncoat. I feel like
that's like an NFL guy that's on the TV where they say their name and shit. Defensive lineman, Ohio State, Mordecai Vanunu.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So anyway, what we're trying to get at is, back in that day, all these things happened where the arms dealers were doing their thing. They started realizing that they could get into plutonium and fucking stealing the plans for that and making nuclear weapons. And essentially they used America and the power that they had, infiltrated the American society. And now we're in a spot where these Zionist Jews that are for making the Jewish Holy Land its own Holy Land, they're essentially using the United States to...
Sorry, I'm adjusting my microphone right now.
They're like the secret hand or secret influence behind U.S. politics, and not just that. They literally, like, they own, you know, the music industry, liquor companies, military companies like BlackRock and all these different companies.
You hear a lot about BlackRock recently.
Yes. BlackRock's buying up a bunch of property all over the place.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
And it's like they also, when all this stuff was going on, they took out a carrier ship that had
Spilly, can you bring over the one of the bourbons, please?
It's if you look up the USS Liberty, they sunk that ship and basically like nobody did anything about it. Like it basically got just like brushed over, like no big deal. And that shit was messed up. They had a hand in killing JFK, which if you watch the documentary, all this stuff is in there. Like, and he goes into great detail about all of it. He's filed many Freedom of Information Acts, and then like different guys that used to be in the CIA and in different areas like have came out and spoke about these things. And like, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's very detailed.
It's a lot of information, and you can watch the documentary, and at the very beginning of it, they start doing this thing. It lasts like 15, 20 minutes long, where they essentially have like one person, and like they're linked to like old school crime syndicates that were located in the United States. But they were these...
it's the Zionist mob.
They were these Zionist Jews that fucking got involved in this situation, and then it starts linking off through the decades and stuff like that, who's involved. And like all of a sudden you see Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein who are linked to these people.
Her father, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad spy. They actually... It ties into Epstein, to all of it. I mean, Epstein was literally used... they called it honey potting or something like that. And what they would do is they would target politicians and scientists and get them to sleep with underage girls and different things like that, and then get blackmail on them and basically get them to play ball with whatever they're trying to do.
They use that to their benefit.
And that's why Epstein was whacked. I mean, that's it.
Because he had a lot of information.
I mean, there's
he
no
knew stuff that the public didn't.
There is evidence to prove that he was something like that, but it's not necessarily proven as fact.
Oh, Robert Maxwell was 100% fact Mossad agent. Her father. So like that part.
But you mean it wasn't proven fact that they were killed for that reason?
On like a media level, yes. It's not proven that Epstein was this like espionage guy who was meant to get these high level politicians to his island and have sex with minors and do this whole pedophile island thing just so they could use that to extort.
But if you put the pieces of the puzzle together,
it makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense to where that's what you would.
But
obviously assume that were to be the case.
That's what we're talking about with modern day. When it comes down to it, it all happened when they were trying to get these nuclear weapons or weapons to help them like claim their homeland. And through the decades, they just became so intertwined with, American government that they essentially have these high level Zionist Jew powers that are these billionaire entities that are essentially running the government.
Which I don't, and before you say anything, Jeff, and I don't mean to cut you off, like, why would the United States want to put themselves in bed with those types of individuals?
Well, I mean, I think, actually, he talks about it in the documentary, but Lyndon B. Johnson, the vice president under JFK, was in bed with these specific Jews.
Why would they want to do that, though? If they're there for the American people, why would they want to put themselves in that position?
I mean, I honestly don't know the facts, but you would assume that they got to have something on these people to get them to do this. And like I said, that's what the honeypotting thing is. And you can't prove that Epstein was intelligence, but when he first got arrested in 2007 and was let off with a sweetheart deal, which there's a documentary also that I can hook people up with if they want to check out the information about Epstein. And he got this sweetheart deal where he was literally allowed to leave prison on the weekends and was still going back to his house and still doing the stuff that
he just continued to do what he was doing.
Was found out to be doing, and just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He paid what he had to pay in order to get himself out of that.
They just let him off. But somebody at the time said, like, someone in government said, when they were asked about it, they said that Epstein was intelligence.
Yeah.
Not which intelligence, but basically confirming that that's the reason why he didn't get hammered for that.
Right.
Like,
because he was at the level of which he'll get let go because they're trying to protect that person.
Exactly.
Yes, and it's
he
all
was a
just,
valuable asset.
It's all just the evolution of things that have happened to get them, intertwined with our society. I mean, you can talk about it was the 60s, right, with the like 7 Days War, where essentially Israel fucking took over Palestine and created the country of Israel.
I think that it was earlier than that when they actually like cut out the chunk of Israel. I could be wrong on that. I mean, totally, but I think it was earlier than the 60s. But I mean, but that's like when the USS Liberty happened.
And when they legitimately sunk a United States battleship and we did nothing
about it.
Yeah,
yes.
and then also why they had to get rid of JFK, because him and his brother were putting pressure on things and like trying to reveal things that
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it, and we're talking about this scenario where we're like carrying on from like the Crusades type thing, where all these monotheistic religions are fighting over this Holy Land. Christianity kind of got off of that for a while, but when you're talking about JFK, he was the first Catholic president to ever be in office. So when he is in office now, all of a sudden it's an issue because these Zionist Jews want power, and he is trying to fight against it for a multitude of reasons. But that's part of the reason why they ended up taking him out, was he was just against the narrative that they were trying to create.
I was just going to say, he didn't believe what it is that they were trying to, trying to accomplish.
He was basically trying to, like, putting the early steps in place to stop this backdoor, secrets that they're running.
Well, the whole thing that happened, if you watch the documentary too, is at the point where JFK was in office, they had already kind of like proven, air quotes, that they were stealing this enriched uranium from the Pennsylvania facility and stuff like that. And JFK was trying to put like sanctions on them, and running satellites over certain areas of that area to find out whether or not they were making nuclear bombs. And there was all kinds of propaganda and stuff to not be able to do that, or to prove that they weren't doing that. But when it came down to it, it was pretty obvious that they were doing it, and the Kennedys were fighting really hard against it. So essentially what they're trying to say in the documentary was that these Zionist Jews who have infiltrated our country murdered JFK so that he wouldn't be able to expose them for that. And it is because of that like you said before, Johnson, who the vice president was, got put into office, and he was essentially a puppet for these people.
He was big time.
I feel like that's also happening in modern day.
Oh yeah, everybody since LBJ pretty much has been
a puppet of how they want
with the program.
Yes, which is crazy to think about, because it's the people that elect them, and yet they're not in turn doing what's best for the people.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
or hiding things that are this fucked up.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's
the people that put them in a position to do what's best for them.
I mean, when you look at it, I mean, we can bring it back to the Kanye thing a little bit. There was an interview that Jeff showed me where Kanye is doing an interview, and he's saying all these wild anti-Semitic things that just like people are like, what the fuck are we talking about here, Kanye? And he brings up a list of like the billionaires. And it's a color-coded like list of all the billionaires in the entire world.
Like all the ones that are red.
All the ones in red are of Jewish descent, and it's
like
90%.
Yeah,
it's like absolutely crazy the amount of numbers.
The amount of Jewish people that run the music and movie industry in Hollywood is insane.
Media, all of it, man.
And for sure.
And that's why, like, even when we're talking about this specific documentary, and like, this has been a podcast that we've been trying to record for about a month now. It just never actually worked out. But we're looking at these things, and this documentary keeps getting taken down. Like, he had to send Wallet the link to it like 3 separate times. It just kind of makes you like realize like maybe this isn't as far-fetched.
Same thing's happening. They want to take it down
because he's over the target.
Because there's information that's being publicized that they don't want people to know.
Exactly. That's why they'll let like the kooky, crazy shit be on the internet, because that helps discredit the actual truth that some few people are revealing and trying to put out there.
Yeah, and there's a lot more realities behind the fact that we're not necessarily seeing. Like, if you watch the now famous Kanye interview on Infowars with Alex Jones or whatever, Kanye is literally wearing this all black like ski mask, and like when he's talking about Yahoo. What's the prime minister of Israel?
Benjamin Netanyahu. He literally brings out this butterfly net and a fucking bottle of Yahoo and is making fun of the prime minister of Israel for being this elite globalist person who has such a control over it. But the thing is about it, he looks so crazy that no one can take him seriously.
And that's the thing. Like, a lot of these, kind of like the Alex Jones we were talking about earlier. I'm not saying everything that Alex Jones has said or talked about on Infowars has come to be true, but a lot of the conspiracy theories that have been talked about, or at least what people consider to be a conspiracy theory, I'm not saying everything about it is 100% factual, but there's a lot of things that have been known to be true now that were looked at and deemed as conspiracy theories.
There's a lot of stuff, especially in like the last, what they say, like if you wait 6 months now, like a conspiracy theory before will be true 6 months from now. Like, Russell Brand, his YouTube videos are great. He's revealed a bunch of stuff that they don't put in the news. But there's like credible reports from certain media sites of all these things that related to COVID and to all kinds of other things.
Of shit in Hollywood too.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's things in Hollywood people don't know about that. I was told because I'm a part of something out there. It's like, dude, listening to this guy tell me about some of this shit is just it's insane.
Yeah, well, that's insane. That's the whole like narrative that it's trying to kind of create, is like the fact that we've created this society where like we have like Black Lives Matter and all this racial tension and stuff, and like you can say whatever you want to, but the second that you talk about someone who is of Jewish descent, it gets
anti-Semitic. Take it down. Anti-Semitic.
It gets taken down immediately. We're not allowed to talk about it, and a lot of the reason why that happens, at least why I believe it happens, you don't necessarily have to share this belief, is that because these people are essentially running the media
they're telling something that is probably more true than it is false, and the people that would be broadcasting it or publicizing it don't want that to be politicized.
It doesn't fit in with their narrative, so they want to take it down.
Yes, that's why this shit's taken down. That's why I've had to go on and look at the link that you sent me several times and try and find it to be able to watch it, because they don't want these individuals in the public to know this type of information.
Yeah.